G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here, with a video to explain about Vegemite and beer. Now it's fairly well known internationally that Australians eat this stuff called Vegemite, which is black and looks like axle grease, and nobody else in the world can understand why we do it. And everybody knows that a lot of Australians like drinking beer. And very few people understand the intimate connection between Vegemite and beer. And if you start introducing the other two ites, the Promite and the Marmite, to the story of the Vegemite and the beer, then you get to the point where virtually nobody thinks about it. So therefore, thus and because, being as every society needs to have a fool on the hill, and around here it seems to be my job, let's see if we can stumble what's going on. In the beginning, there was the beer, brewed and fermented using a unique centuries-old method of top primary fermentation and natural bottle conditioning. The finest South Australian barley malt is judiciously combined with roasted malt and aromatic hops to produce this stout of rare excellence. As I understand it, they make their ales with more barley and less malt than they use for the stout. But yeah, what you get is a very dark product. Which is 6.3% alcohol, which means that if you drink it, then you will get drunk. So what they've basically done is they've taken all the carbohydrates and the sugars which were in the barley and which were in the malt, and they've succeeded in making a soup of water and sugar and barley and malt. And then they throw in yeast bacteria of a known strain which is known to have a particular tolerance to swimming in alcohol, and they throw the yeast into the rich, sugary, nutrient broth, and the yeast eats all of the goodness and it shits alcohol. And when it's eaten all the sugar that it can eat and it's shat enough alcohol to kill itself, then the yeast dies. Now it farts carbon dioxide before it dies, all the while that it's eating. And this stuff, the reason it's fizzy and bubbly is because of the farts of all the yeast while it was shitting the alcohol, and I'm drinking it for the alcohol. So beer is high quality fermented yeast shit. And whiskey is what happens if you get your beer and put it through a distillation process to get more of the alcohol, more of the yeast shit into the liquid on a mass volume basis. Okay, so that's beer, right? Take all the goodness in the barley and the wheat, feed it to the yeast. When the yeast shits in its own nest enough to the point that it dies, then you strain off the soup, filter it, and sell it to people like me. That's the beer part of the story. That's part one. Now we're going to go and look at part two, which is older. Older than Vegemite, younger than beer. In the beginning, there was Promite. And Promite is, as it says so on the label, a vegetable spread. And I may be wrong, but my understumbling is that this stuff was invented in Great Britain either before or during the First World War as a nutritional supplement, and something to do with the otherwise unsaleable parts of vegetables like potato peelings, carrot tops, misshapen turnips, all the things you can't sell. All right? And here in Australia, the law says that you have to display the ingredients of your food product in order of the proportion they make up of whatever's inside the packet. So on the back of the Promite jar, it says this, and because my camera cannot focus on a round jar at this distance, therefore somebody has kindly transcribed the figures. So there you see a list of ingredients. There's more vegetable protein extract than there is sugar, more sugar than yeast extract, more yeast extract than water, more water than colour, which is caramel 150C, more colour than corn flour from corn, more corn flour than salt, more salt than glucose syrup from wheat, more wheat than there is onion, more onion than emulsifier, glycerol monostearate, more emulsifier than vegetable gum, carrageenan, more vegetable gum than there is food acid, that's citric acid, and more food acid than there is spice extract. Who'd have thunk it? Then they also tell you that there are 58 5-gram servings per jar, and per serving there's 46 kilojoules, which is 0.5% of your daily requirement for energy is in each serve. There's 0.7 gram of protein, which is 1%. There's 0.1 gram total fat, of which 0.1 gram is saturated fat. That's 0.2% and 0.3% of your daily requirement. 1.6 grams of carbohydrate, which is 0.5% of your daily requirement. 0.9 gram of sugar, which is 1%. And sodium, 240 milligrams, which is 10% of your daily allotment of salt. So yeah, this stuff was popular in England, therefore it was being sold in Australia. And it has got some yeast extract in it. And as I said, they make this out of the unwanted parts of vegetables. Basically, they put it all in a pot, they boil it, they sieve it, and then they put it in a vacuum, and all of the water is desiccated by the vacuum, and they wind up with a powder. They grind the powder and sludge down to a very fine, even consistency. Then they add some salt and some flavourings. And that's what you got. That's Promite vegetable extract with some yeast extract in there. And then again, after World War I think, and I don't know whether it was in England or in Australia, but somebody got the bright idea to get rid of the vegetables and just use the yeast extract. So we have Marmite. And once again, my camera is not going to be able to read the figures on the back of that jar. Therefore, somebody has kindly transcribed them. There's more yeast in there than there is sugar. There's more sugar than there is salt, which is sodium chloride. There's more salt than there is mineral salt, which is potassium chloride. There's more potassium chloride than there is colour, which is caramel 3. There's more colour than there is corn, which is maltodextrin. There's more corn than there is mineral, which is iron. And there's more mineral than there is vitamins, as in niacin, thiamine, riboflavin, folate, and B12. And then there's some herbs, and then there's some spices. So, sugar, salt, yeast, no B group vitamins. Yeast, sugar, salt, no vegetables, but B group vitamins. 55 gram servings per jar. Energy, 35 kilojoules, 8 calories. Protein, 0.9 gram. Fat, total, less than 0.1 gram. Saturated, less than 0.1 gram. Carbohydrate, total, 0.8 gram. Sugars, 0.6 gram. Dietary fibre, 0.5 gram. Sodium, 166 grams. It's a lot of salt. Potassium, 140 grams. It's a lot of salt. Thiamine is vitamin B1, 55 milligrams, 50% of your daily requirement per serving. Riboflavin, vitamin B2, 43 milligrams, 25% of your daily requirement. Niacin, vitamin B3, 2.5 milligrams, 25% of your daily requirement. Folate, vitamin B9, 40 micrograms, which is 20% of your daily requirement. Vitamin B12, 0.5 of a microgram, which is 25% of your daily requirement. Iron, 1.8 milligrams, or 15% of your daily iron requirement. That's what's in Marmite. And then, in Australia, somebody decided to compete with Marmite by getting rid of the sugar, and their initial name for it was Parwill, P-A-R-W-I-L-L, as a pun on Marmite, but Parwill. And that didn't work. So they rebranded it, and they called it Vegemite. which, as I said, really genuinely does look like axle grease. And it's an Australian national institution, eating Vegemite. We are happy little Vegemites. There's a song about it. Lots of advertising was made. Okay, so here's your ingredients list for Vegemite. Yeast extract from yeast grown on barley and wheat. There's more of that than there is salt, and there's more ordinary salt than there is mineral salt. Then there's some malt extract from barley. Then there's some colour, 150C. Then there's flavours. Then there's niacin, thiamine, riboflavin and folate. Okay, so here's how the Vegemite breaks down. 36 kilojoules of energy, less than 1%. 1.3 grams of protein, which is 3% of your daily protein requirement. Less than 1 gram of total fat, less than 1 gram of saturated fat. Both of those are less than 1% of your total daily requirement. Carbohydrate, total less than 1 gram, which is less than 1%. Sugars, less than 1 gram. And be buggered to the wind, I'm not going to restart this video. So where were we? Sugars, less than 1 gram, which is less than 1%. Dietary fibre, 0.4 of a gram, which is 1% of your daily requirement. Sodium, 165 milligrams, 7%. Now they don't tell you how much potassium's in there. Strange, but they've listed it on the list of ingredients as slightly below salt. So there's probably almost 100 milligrams of the stuff. Maybe only 50. Maybe it comes up to 250 between the sodium and the potassium. But anyway, they don't list you the potassium. Thiamine, vitamin B1, 0.55 of a milligram, 50% of your daily requirement. Riboflavin, B2, 0.43 of a milligram, 25%. Niacin, vitamin B3, 2.5 milligrams, 25% of your daily requirement. Folate, vitamin B9, 100 micrograms, 50% of your daily requirement. All three of them are basically a highly flavoured nutritional supplement. The two on the left have got sugar as well as salt. The one on the right's only got salt. The one on the left has got vegetable extract mainly with some yeast extract. The one in the middle and the one on the right have only got yeast extract. But in either case, the truth is beer is the waste product in the Vegemite manufacturing process. Beer is what's left of the sugar that the yeast couldn't eat. Beer is the alcohol that killed the yeast. And Vegemite and Marmite is where all of the vitamins and the minerals and the actual goodness of the yeast and the barley and the hops finally finishes up. So what they do is they sell the alcohol, the yeast shit, to old fellas like me, and we enjoy it, and then they market the dead yeast, which has got all the nutritional ingredients of the wheat and the barley and the malt and the hops. They market that to everybody, and in Australia everybody eats it. I've no idea what you do with your yeast extract in the rest of the world, but that's what we do with it here. We eat it, and when we eat it we like it, and when foreigners eat it they generally hate it, and mostly the reason why they hate it is because they try to use too much of it. So let's have a demonstration using these convenient 10-gram portions which have 2 serves in each, and that, as small as it is enough for 2 slices of bread, and that's for somebody who likes the stuff and is used to the taste of it. If you've never had this stuff before, I would suggest something like that would be enough for a slice of bread, just enough to give you a taste of it, sort of like kind of thing, which as you can see is nothing like what they describe as a serve. If I was spreading this Vegemite for me to eat, and I was raised on the stuff, that would be about the way I like it. But as I said, everybody's tastes vary. there are people who will put their Vegemite on this thick. Okay, so on the left, you've got a beginner's dose of Vegemite. On the right, you've got that fit for somebody who really likes it. But I guarantee you, if a beginner tries Vegemite in that level, they are going to hate it for all the rest of their life. But we like it. Ciao.